What's up, guys? Damien Beatdown Brown. Welcome to the Beatdown YouTube series where I'm going to be breaking down fights, upcoming fights across the globe. So not just UFC fights or local fights, but all fights. Well, at least the ones that we think the more important ones. And of course, we'll wrap them up as well. So the following week, we'll jump on, we'll wrap them up. I'll admit where I was wrong and skite about where I was right. But, we'd like to have some guests on in the future as well. You can follow me on social media, Beatdown155, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And then, of course, check out Damien Brown on YouTube, which is where you'll see all of our videos. I'm also a Rizin analyst, gym owner, coach, UFC veteran. Kind of done a little bit of everything, so I feel like I'm going to be able to give you guys a real good insight into some of the fights that are coming up across the globe. So for our first episode, I'm absolutely stoked to be here. I'm going to cover off on the UFC 291 this weekend for the BMF belt between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. And of course, then we're going to cross across to the Rizin event this weekend, Rizin versus Bellator again. Doing some good things there in Japan. This one out of Super Saitama Arena. And of course, seeing the cross promotion between two massive companies is good for MMA. It's good for MMA in general, and it's great for the future. It's fantastic for the sport. And of course, we'd like to see some of the Rizin athletes get up this time with Bellator going 5-0 last time. So let's cross to 291. First up, we're going to cover off on Gaethje versus Pereira. Interesting matchup. Alex Pereira is obviously has had a storied career. He has had a lot of kickboxing experience. His striking's phenomenal. His series of fights with Israel Adesanya, potentially exposing some weaknesses in his MMA game, which I think that Jan can exploit. It would be pretty widely known that Jan's best chance, in my opinion, is to take this fight to the mat. I believe that Israel himself showed those weaknesses in Pereira's game. But that mighty left hook, we know what that can do. So I think at light heavyweight and heavyweight, one punch can change anything. And of course, at middleweight for Pereira, it can change anything. But I think that Gaethje would greatly benefit in this fight by taking it to the mat and doing so early while Alex is dry, before he gets a sweat on, before he gets moving. I think that this will be a lot easier than people believe, based on the fact that he was able to do it to Israel Adesanya, and he has very good distance management. He's light on his feet. He switches a lot. His lateral movement's amazing. Pereira's a little bit more flat-footed, a little bit more pushing forward, and he stands quite tall. I think that Jan will have really good success at hitting the takedowns as long as he sets them up properly. I believe early on in the fight, a heavy kick game for him would greatly benefit as well. Pereira, no weight cut, moving up to 205. I'm really excited to see, what version of him we get. How dehydrated was he before? Did he rehydrate properly? How much better does he look? Obviously, always trains with Glover, who was the former UFC light heavyweight champion. So that's a really good fight. I think it stays on the feet. Alex is going to get it done. I think if Jan can take it to the ground, he'll get it done, and he'll get it done early. And then, of course, we move on to the main event, and for the BMF belt. A lot of talk around this fight. It's a rematch. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje happened 5 years ago, and I believe that both guys have adapted and developed their skill set in that time. We've seen incredible improvements by Justin Gaethje. With 24 wins to his name and 29 for Dustin, these guys are very experienced. We have wrestling, jiu-jitsu, everything, boxing. Across the board, both guys are phenomenal in every area. The first fight, obviously, Dustin got the benefit of, but it's just, I think this fight can go either way. I'm going to stay away from it as a betting man, but I believe that the best chances for Justin Gaethje is to be switching his stances up a little bit. Don't stay in one. And I think that his path to victory is under 2.5 rounds. I believe the second round in this fight will be crucial. I think over the past few fights of Dustin's, we've seen that the second round, maybe he's trying to find his groove, blows the cobwebs out in the first round. The second round, that's where Dan Hooker really caught him, and he's been caught numerous times by people in the second round. But once he gets into the third, fourth, and fifth round, as this fight goes on, I think he's really going to find his groove, and that's where it's going to benefit him. So the longer the fight goes, the better it is for Dustin. Justin Gaethje, I think the earlier that he gets involved, the better. I seen earlier in the week that Dustin mentioned that, the worst thing that Gaethje can do is come with a technical game plan and a technical approach. I do agree with that. I think he needs to create chaos, but technically. And I think we've seen over the past few fights, particularly with his coach, Trevor Whitman, very, very intelligent coach, great coach. He's telling him in the corner, you're trying to kill him. He just wants him to back the power off a little bit to try and keep the balance and to be able to maintain the pace over 3 rounds, in this case 5. So, look, I think early he's got to get amongst it. He's got to chop the legs. He has to slow up the movement of Dustin Poirier. And I think the second round will be crucial. That's definitely where he'll, in my opinion, have his best chance at a stoppage. Dustin, on the other hand, I think the longer the fight goes, the better it'll be for him. He has phenomenal boxing, southpaw stance, good movement, slides to the outside of the front foot very well, and finds a home for those shots the longer the fight goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he trades some leg kicks in this one, especially with the opposing stances. But we've seen it against Michael Chandler. If Justin Gaethje decides to wrestle, then Dustin Poirier's got phenomenal jiu-jitsu, takes the back, and he could get that choke. So who knows how that fight's going to turn out. That's why we got that fight. I'm very excited to watch as a fan. I'm not really going to pick a winner, but I would say the fight either, if Justin's going to win, he's going to win it in the first 2.5. If the longer it goes, the more chance Dustin Poirier gets it done. So that's an incredible fight, a good reason to buy a pay-per-view. I would buy it just for that fight if it was me. So incredible matchups. So we move across to the Rizin event. Obviously, as a Rizin analyst, a little bit of a background on some of these guys. Rizin's on Saturday. Juan Archuleta fighting for the belt. Rather impressive couple of fights he's had for Rizin so far. Also under the Bellator banner. But Augie Kubo, he stepped in on short notice with Kai Sakura getting injured. So he'll be stepping in there, 36 years of age, couple of weeks notice, jumped in, 7-4 Rizin record with 7 of those wins, so all 7 wins coming by decision. Juan Archuleta's won 2 decisions recently in Rizin, and in my opinion, somewhat controversial decision, New Year's Eve card. The last one, not so much, but Augie Kubo, great wrestler, phenomenal wrestler, and I think this fight plays directly into, the way that we see his fights play out. So he's always looking to let his hands set up the takedowns, get the fight to the mat, and he knows how to grind out a victory. We've seen that recently with Archuleta. He's actually wrestled at Purdue University, so he knows how to wrestle, and that's how he's won the last few fights. So this is a real interesting matchup. I'm very excited to watch that one play out. I think, given the time frame, Augie Kubo could have maybe some gas tank issues, but you would hope that his experience as a 32-fight veteran is enough to carry him through. He would have been training, no doubt, anyway, if he's stepped in. So, talk about violence, guys. Down the card, Mikaru Asakura versus Vugar Karamov. Karamov, he's 14-1 in his last 15 fights, and he has 10 finishes. The guy doesn't care if he knocks you out or submits you. He gets amongst it. In his last outing, got a little frustrated early, so he just engaged in the fight. And once he gets in there, I mean, he puts hands on you. That's at featherweight. And of course, Asakura, everyone knows the Asakura brothers, but he's a mainstay for Rizin, and he always brings the fight. He's super exciting. He's unpredictable. He's not like your traditional type striker. He's been working on his jiu-jitsu. He could finish with flying knees, spinning back kicks, all sorts of stuff. He's never predictable. So I'm very excited for that matchup. It really just screams stoppage to me. So I would be very surprised if that goes to a decision. We move on to what's just developed this week. So Patricky Pitbull was set to fight AJ McKee in the Grand Prix for Bellator. AJ McKee got an infection in his leg. Update this week on Twitter. He's 1 week into the infection, got a hole in his leg still. So we wish him a speedy recovery. Staph infections are never good. But never fear, Roberto Souza, the lightweight champ for Rizin, stepped into the Bellator lightweight Grand Prix. He will face Patricky Pitbull. That's a great matchup. Those guys were both in the 2019 Rizin lightweight Grand Prix. They didn't face each other on different sides of the bracket. So they're not strangers to one another, so to speak. And again, the grappling game of Roberto Souza, if people haven't tuned in, the guy can literally shoot from 2 meters away, grab your foot, and he climbs on your back. And for the most part, it's all over. AJ McKee on New Year's Eve successfully took him down and, used good posture, good basics and fundamentals to hang out in the guard and cause a lot of damage, and ultimately got a decision. Roberto bounced back against Spike Carlisle at his last outing. He looked great. Didn't get the submission that night, but he looked phenomenal, and he's dangerous at all times, with wins over the likes of Johnny Case and Tofik Masaev. So, I'm really interested to see how that plays out. Patricky is a little flat-footed, so I think it makes him susceptible to the takedowns, or at least the entry. And with Roberto's level of jiu-jitsu, he doesn't need to get the takedown, he just needs to get hold of you. So if he engages in any kind of clinch, I see that fight going to the mat really quick, and it's just a matter of whether Patricky can hang out there long enough to not get submitted and cause enough damage. But I think we'll see a finish in that one. Roberto Souza by submission, but who knows? And the last one I'm going to cover off on, Sika Izawa, 25 years of age versus Claire Lopez. Izawa is the 2022 Rizin Super Atomweight Grand Prix champion. When she came onto the scene, she'd only had a couple of fights, and she went right after it with the finishes. She looked phenomenal, went all the way through the tournament and won the Grand Prix. Claire Lopez faced Hannah on her last outing and won by knee bar. There was plenty of people talking afterwards that she had a toe in the cage. I disagree. I did a breakdown of it. You can check that out on my Instagram. Claire Lopez, she looked great. She was definitely, 1 round apiece under a normal rule set, okay? Rizin under the global rules. They score the fight as a whole. But in my opinion, as she went into the third, she was closer to a finish. She was scoring more damage. She was looking pretty good. And then Lopez pulls out the knee bar on the ground with her legs. Not your traditional type knee bar. Definitely something a lot of people in MMA haven't seen, but not uncommon in jiu-jitsu. And she picked up herself a rather impressive victory over, one of Japan's superstars. So this is going to be a good matchup. It will definitely play out in the ground. Izawa, 10-0, 4 submissions and 1 knockout. So 50% finish rate. Loves the sub. Undefeated confidence. It holds a lot of weight. Lopez, she's got 7 submissions and knockouts out of 8 wins. So this fight has a finish written all over it. And I'm really interested to see how that plays out and whether or not the young Izawa can overcome the youth nerves, but the experience of Lopez and get the victory again. So that's my wind up for the fights coming up this weekend, guys. Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier for the BMF belt, UFC 291. And of course, the move to light heavyweight for Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz. I'm not going to call a winner, but I think those fights are worth buying the pay-per-view. Tune in next week. We'll wrap up the fights. We'll cover off on the victors, and no doubt I'll probably have to admit that I was wrong in some cases, and in others, hopefully I was right. Thanks again. Tune in next week.